Hello everyone, and welcome in to the first of today's 3 flights. Today we're going to be starting in the F4 Phantom equipped with AIM-9Js, AIM-7E-2s, my favourite, the dogfight Sparrows, and fuel on the wing pylons. Not because that's the best place to put the fuel, but rather because that's the coolest place to have your fuel tanks, because that's how all of the cool F4 Phantoms looked. You can use the start cart if you want to. I don't, because using the start cartridges is way more fun, because you can jump scare people by holding down the ignition buttons and doing this. And if people have their audio turned all the way up, that's really, really, really loud. While the engines are catching, I like to set the flaps to normal and set my takeoff trim. Temperature gauges have gone back down. We can let go of the ignition switches now. We can close the canopy. Right generator. Left generator. Right generator. Heat because it's cold outside. Transmit receive.
Down and lock. Lights out and stripes aligned.
IFF to normal. Anti-skid. Oxygen.
Okay, what alignment? Our generator's up. I can start the alignment. Copy. Okay, sword heading aligned. Hey, what alignment do you want?
Jester is all confused, but that's okay. We have reset our static pitch correction, which means that we can reset our altimeter, uncage our SAI, turn on the radar-guided missiles, turn off the interlocks, arm, nose, tail, even though you don't really need to do that when you're not carrying bombs. I do it out of habit during my startup procedure because there is no worse feeling in the world than dropping 16 Mark 82s that harmlessly impact the ground and don't explode. Set our central display to radar and our standby, our reticle to air-to-air mode. And that's really all there is to it. We've got the wingtip tanks, so we'll set the outboard tanks and turn on the stability augmentation systems. Of course, many steps in that startup procedure that you will have just seen will not be true to life, but it's a good way to get your aircraft hot and ready to go in the shortest time possible. We're going to be doing combat air patrol, taking off from Kutaisi and heading northwest along the coast to cover off the battle currently happening between Sochi Adler and the Gudata airfields, and you can see there is no shortage of people in the sky. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Looks like there's 6 MiGs, 15s, 19s, and 21s, mostly 21s, about 100 nautical miles away. And missiles are in the skies. If you are ever starting up your F4 Phantom and you've told Jester to do the startup procedure and do the alignment, if you ever need to stand up and get a drink and come back later and you're wondering whether or not he's completed his alignment or not, there's an easy way to tell. Just keep your eyes on the radar warning receiver, and if he turns it on in the back seat, that means that he has finished his work. You can always go in the back seat and check the alignment panel. It's just by your right knee. But it's even easier just to see whether or not he's turned on the radar warning receiver. Ugh. Been talking to a lot of my friends throughout the world, and it looks like it's been especially cold over here in the UK. It has been reasonably chilly, but not too bad. Mostly rain. And in fact, I kind of wish that I had one of these switches for the country I live in. But it's always awkward sitting here just waiting for the gyroscopes and inertial navigation systems to come up to speed and get themselves ready for combat. Truth be told, if you really wanted to optimize your startups in DCS for many aircraft. You could probably...
Completed. You can go primary sync
And
now.
here goes. There you go.
Ready to taxi.
There's the radar warning receiver on. We can go to primary, and we can remove the wheel chocolates.
Rudder.
Taxi over to the runway, which is a right and then a right. Yeah, for some aircraft, performing a full alignment isn't
Yes, sir.
totally necessary if the if the end result of your flight is just going to be flying to a certain area and performing cap. You won't need any of the particularly complicated navigational systems, especially on a clear day like today, where you'll be able to get yourself around with land nav, and of course in DCS you'll have the F10 map as well. But for me, I always like to get...
We're going to be picking up a few bug guts on this flight. What do you think?
I wish there was a way you could stop him from asking that every time.
Roger.
I don't think it has any particular impact on his behaviour, whether or not you say you're going to fly low or high, but never mind. I watched a wonderful video from a content creator named Kojak, who showed how to do rudder reversals in the F4 Phantom. A relatively complicated procedure, at least looking outside in, on doing reversals in the F4 Phantom utilising adverse yaw and rudder inputs whilst doing a climb, relying on the angle of attack sounds to provide at least some cueing for when to perform the maneuver. I'm going to see if I can try it if I get a chance today, but nothing says bad idea like learning yourself a new basic fighter maneuver technique off YouTube and deciding to try it live on in combat. But you know what? That's one of the most fun things about DCS, is that you get to do all of your training in the sky. Okay, gear up, flaps up. I've got a Verpal Mongoose T50 CM3, and one of my switches is giving me a little bit of bother. So I might have to disassemble everything and give it a little bit of a clean, just to make sure all of the wires and contacts are all hunky-dunky. Nonetheless, we're going to aim to have our wing fuel tanks pretty much empty by the time we reach the front line, which is about 83 nautical miles away. So we're not going to do the environment any favours by saving fuel. We'll get ourselves up to around about 20,000 feet just for the journey over. Keep ourselves in afterburner. If you've got all of this thrust, you might as well use it. Turn on our master arm now. And just watch the thousands of feet tick by as we climb higher and higher. MiG-19s are an interesting sight. This is not necessarily the bare bones rear aspect only Cold War scenario that the MiG-19 tends to thrive a little bit in, seeing as I've got a full pack of 4 AIM-7 E-2s. It's going to be a tricky fight, and of course plenty of MiG-21s, Mirage F1s and Su-25Ts flying around as well. Okay, up to 20,000 feet. We are pretty okay.
Nailed. 6 o'clock.
Travelling at 520 knots, true. We'll get some speed as we transition over to the area. And for those of you who are getting into multiplayer DCS for the first time, and you're struggling with things like, how do I know where to go? May seem obvious, as there will be objectives on the map, but a great tool to get in the habit of using is the ruler tool. If you go to F10 and you enable the ruler here by clicking on this button right at the top, right next to the text box with a W, and then you right click and drag between 2 points, it'll give you the magnetic heading, the true heading, and the distance in nautical miles. And by getting the magnetic heading and the true magnetic heading, you can kind of get a ballpark or the direction that you want to be going in. So in this instance, 380 to 280 to 290 to 295 seems to be pretty alright. somewhere in that ballpark will do us fine. And we can see from the EWR as well
Mud, 1 o'clock. And mud.
that we are heading in the right direction as well. SA3 appearing on the very outside of the radar warning receiver, not something I think is going to cause us too much bother. One of my favourite modes to use in the F4 Phantom, lots of people fly the F4 Phantom in different ways, but one of my favourite ways to use it is to try and get the best performance out of my Sparrows that I can. More specifically by caging and then using the aspect switches. So listen to Jester in the back here.
Nose. Forward. Aft. Tail. Wide. Nose.
Those different zones provide disparate aspects that can interact with boresight mode, meaning that you can fire radar-guided missiles without a lock. And in close-range head-on engagements, when equipped with something like the AIM-7 E02, the dogfight Sparrow, I find that in head-ons especially, using boresight mode and setting the target to be forward or nose aspect has great results. You've got to admire the choice of location. If there was one place in the world to spend thousands and thousands of hours flying around in a combat scenario, the Caucasus Mountains have to be absolutely amazing. To the point where I almost want to go on holiday to the Caucasus to just see some of these places in real life. Of course, with the current circumstances surrounding the world, we won't necessarily count on that being a certainty, but maybe in the distant future things may have calmed down a little bit. These mountains are just incredible though. Thousands and thousands of controlled flight into terrain, millions of missiles that have been jinked by their targets into those mountains, 1,000 different stories of virtual aerial conflict all surrounding these rolling hills. It was one of the interesting points with the release of the Cold War Germany map that it is an absolutely beautiful map. The only problem is that that part of Germany is realistically flat as a pancake. And when the terrain is flat, it can sometimes not really matter if you're flying above Berlin or the plains of North Africa. Flat terrain is flat terrain, and the implications that it has on aerial dogfighting is certainly interesting, but it comes with its own unique challenges and opportunities. For me personally, I love maps that have mountains, particularly really high mountains, just because I think that the dynamic of flying between different mountains and dodging missiles kinematically by spoofing them into terrain is one of my favourite ways to fly. It does change the dynamic, especially when it comes to beyond visual range combat, having the opportunity to hide from things like AWACS and early warning radars as well. We're coming up on 21.6 nautical miles at 308, so I'm going to suspect that we are not far away. Udata Airport, which actually has no friendly cap over it. So, let's get ourselves ready for aerial combat. There's probably still fuel in our wing tanks, or maybe it's just recently ran out. Either way, we're going to jettison them before we get into a fight and have to worry about getting rid of them then. We'll arm the gun, make sure the gun is working, and everything is good to go. We're looking at 329 for 11.6, so let's get dynamic. $354 for 9.7, practically north right now. Going to switch over to bore sight mode and get the heat seekers ready, just in case we catch him down here, because he is heading cold now. Keeping an eye open for those little tiny dots. You get better over the years. There is some balance to do with your settings, but also just your mechanical ability to spot things, I think, gets better with practice over the years. And speaking of which, I think I've seen something. But it might be a helicopter. No, whatever it is, it's flying. But that looks like it might be a very rare boy to see on the front lines today. Is that a C-101? It is! It's a C-101 engaged in a dogfight with a MiG-21 that just passed over my right-hand shoulder. And I'm seeing a smoke trail. Question is, was that the C-101? It was the C-101 shooting down a MiG-21. Congratulations, C-101. Who was flying that? London 1-1 wingspan killed Boomcat with an A9J in the C-101. Oh, that's going to be tough. Oh boy, I've never flown the C-101 before. For me, the C-101 is famous for being the default targets on the Hoggett training servers for aerial targets, which I always thought was a rather cruel fate. Especially if, I don't know if Jester in the F4 has a voice line for it, but I think Jester in the F14 has a voice line for a C-101. Kind of giggling at it.
Heads up, I've got nails.
Okay, looks like we've got a bunch of Su-25Ts, so heading over to Gudata Airport. 30 nautical miles, or travelling at about 360 knots. So they are charging in towards the combat zone. Gonna ease off the throttle just a touch, so we don't burn all of our fuel before we get tangled up. Mirage F1EE at 33,000 feet. Looks like there's already a friendly that might be heading up to go and get them, so we'll leave them to that. And of course we'll be on standby just in case they get pushed down. And in fact, I'm looking at the EWR. We've got a Mirage F1BE, the Bravo Echo Mirage F1, which you very rarely see because it's the two-seat version. And part of it being the two-seat version means that it doesn't get an internal gun. And for it being a two-seat version, it's a two-seat trainer as opposed to a two-seat aircraft where the backseater is a weapon system operator or something like that. The F1BE is pretty strictly for training purposes, and as a result, you don't really gain a increase in aircraft performance by having both of those positions be staffed. Whereas if I didn't have Jester in the back seat, there'd be very little I could do in this airframe. Except use heat seekers, I guess. Anyone who's known me for a while will know that if there's one thing that I despise, it's Jester's propensity for quipping at you. I know some people love Jester's personality, but for some reason it just bothers me no end. Okay, we can see Su-25Ts and all kinds of aircraft flying around in circles over there, getting prosecuted pretty actively, and ground fire also shooting at them. See if we can get him. Okay. Might actually be able to pick him up for a lock here.
We've got a bandit. Su-25, 12 o'clock, 5 miles. We've got a bandit. SU-25, 12 o'clock, 4 miles.
1 potato, 2 potato, 3 potato.
1003, 1004. Shoot him. Rudder, they're our bandit. 11 o'clock, 2 miles.
Box 1.
Bandit is down.
Oh boom.
Back to scanning again. Forward.
Nothing beats sparrows, man. They're my favourite. I don't know why, but they just have the desired effect on hostiles, in my opinion. Got to be careful. That F1BE is here too.
Got a new bogey. Right 40 degrees. 1 mile, 9,000.
SU-25T is going in for another attack run on Gudata. See if we can get him.
Nose. Forward. Aft. Tail.
With a tail shot.
We've had our 10 o'clock.
Okay, he pulled too hard, got out of the aspect zone. Just tried one of those rudder reversals there, but because my angle of attack limiter wasn't beeping, it just kicked things over a little bit. So not the desired effect. I'm definitely going to have to go and do some training on learning on how to do that. That's a phantom over there.
5 o'clock.
That looks like the Tango down there. We still have our aim 7s in rear aspect, so let's see if we can get in. Better to use a heat seeker, seeing as it's going a little bit maneuverable. Whoosh.
The bandit is going down. He's at our 1 o'clock.
There we go. 2 tangos, and Gudata Airport is now a little bit safer. Ooh, but we've got one more SU-25 here. A regular SU-25 may potentially be behind me as well, so let's just dump some countermeasures. Not that that's going to do much if I'm fully afterburning, but you know, pressing the button does make me feel a little bit better. This is going to make me feel like a bully. Box 1 again. Tail aspect. No track. Box 2.
The bandit is down.
And that is rapid disassembly of SU-25s.
Back to standard camp.
And an excellent lesson in why attacking a point is potentially a little bit trickier if you don't have enough air defenses. Good hunting though. That's 3 kills. And also about just over half of our missiles spent. So what I might do here is I might quickly journey back to Sukumi Babashura, which is at a bearing of 104. Get ourselves set up for a landing, get some fuel, get some weapons, and get ready to continue our defense. Uh-oh. I didn't think about this before I started recording myself flying the F4 Phantom, but I am really running the risk of demonstrating my terrible, terrible landing abilities in this airframe. I just don't get it. I don't get it. It has an angle of attack indicator here on the left of the HUD, and I'm sure that transmits some kind of useful information. But if it isn't just alien gibberish to me, I will guarantee you. There are some instruments in the cockpit that you understand completely, and some instruments in the cockpit that are just complete gibberish. Not necessarily flying for too long over Gudata Airport, but we laid on the afterburner plenty thick, so we're down to 347 pounds of fuel, or rather, it's multiplied by 10, 3,400. Which I think is about as much fuel as a JF-17 Thunder actually carries internally. That might not be true, actually, but you know what? Sometimes it's more fun to lie.
7,500.
Jester is always magnificent. He will miss the target that is directly ahead of you, but he will get an accurate and correct lock on a bandit that is 49 nautical miles away, flying at 50 feet. And he'll be like, oh, that's a bogey. I'll be like, how do you see that? How can you see that guy but not be able to see the Tu-95 that's cruising at 30,000 feet just because it's not quite going at the speed that we like our radar to work at? Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. I had a interesting situation happen at the gym. Almost like a stereotype, but not nearly as cool as it sounds. I managed to punch one of the boxing bags off the ceiling of my gym, which sounds cool in theory, in a kind of Captain America hooking up another punching bag in the boxing gym because that's like the 5th one that he's broken. But in reality, applying even marginal force to a improperly installed punching bag will detach it from the ceiling, and I certainly made quite a mess of plasterboard, and of course it was too late for any gym staff to be there because it's a 24-hour gym. I had to leave a note being like, hey guys, I punched the damn punching bag off the roof. I hope I'm not in trouble for this damage, because there is an argument to be made that the only thing in the world that you were allowed to stand around and punch all day long is a punching bag. And if the punching bag itself cannot stand up to the rigors of being punched, then I would be inclined to say that it is no longer a punching bag, and instead just a bag. I do miss having access to some of the other boxing implements that I particularly liked. You see, I never know the real names for anything, but my favourite one was kind of like a heavy ball made out of the same kind of material as a punching bag, but it's attached to the ceiling and to the floor with an elastic rope, meaning that as you punch this bag, it develops a kind of rubber banding momentum back and forth, and it gets into this really dynamic moving target for you to practice punching accuracy on. To this day, I never really know if I was using that thing correctly or not, but all I knew was that it was really fun to use. I could never get the rhythm on a speed bag correct. You know the stereotypical punching bag implement, the bag that's hanging from like a hook on the roof, and you'd see videos of people like Mike Tyson just backing it back and forth, and it goes doogadum, 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 doogadum. I never could quite get the rhythm right, and I was never 100% sure on what exactly that exercise was doing for you. Though judging by how difficult it was to do whatever Mike Tyson appeared to be doing, one can only assume that it's got to be good for training something. Watching the boxing bags at the gym is one of my favourite pastimes, though. I'm no good at boxing, but I did go to boxing classes a little bit, so at the very least I know a handful of the basics. But some people come into the gym, I think, motivated by hatred, and they're not necessarily concerned with technique when it comes to attacking a punching bag. I think they're using it more as a target for their directionless violence, and who can blame them? Because as you say, it's the one place in the world that you are actually allowed to just lay into something specifically designed to be hit.
Today was as sweet as PB&J.
Never had a PB&J in my life. I don't have any idea what they taste like. Doesn't seem like a natural mix. Though I do like the fact that Americans call it jelly and Australians and people in the UK call it jam, but PB&J still works either way. I do have all of the prerequisite ingredients for PB&J though, so maybe I need to expand my culinary horizons and have my first PB&J this evening. Maybe that'll be my dinner. I'll have a PB&J. Alright, spectacular. Only one air-to-air kill? I could have sworn I got 3. That being said, maybe they took themselves out one way or another. Okay, we've got 270 pounds of fuel. We've got a lot of refueling to do and a lot of rearming to do. Today's second flight is going to be on the same aircraft, just refueled and repacked. Hello everyone, and welcome back for flight number 2. If proof were needed that this is 3 flights recorded one after another, I forgot to turn on my VTuber tracking, or at least I had my VTuber tracking turned on, but then I got an important message from someone I love very much, and I use my same phone for all of my tracking of my little airplane model, or all of my interpersonal communication. And as a result, me urgently replying to this message that well deserved my attention did unfortunately mean that the tracking broke. Now I'm just seeing that not all of the lights for my radar guided missiles are working. Let's just see. I took off the wing tanks because we're close to the front line now and we can do without the drag from those pylons, so by right-clicking, and instead of going remove payload, you can remove the pylon. You can remove the unnecessary pylons for those fuel tanks, saving yourself just a little bit of pain and strife. Okay, we can see all 4 radar-guided missiles getting active now. More MiGs are coming up to Godata, so we've got to go and intercept them. Further to my point about not really understanding the names of boxing equipment, I don't know the names of any of the equipment in the gym. I know that they have technical names, but I haven't got a clue. I just call them for what they do.
Engine's good. Air coming alive. 80 knots.
There's one machine where you sit on a chair, and there's 2 long bars that are out by your sides, and you stretch your arms out and you grab those bars, and then you kind of push them together. You pull them together with your arms, and I think it works out your pecs and your arms and your shoulders. And I'm certain that this has a true and proper name. However, I call it the hugger because the muscles that you are working out on that machine are very clearly the same muscles that you use for hugging someone, so that must be the machine that you use to give good hugs. And of course, following on the same vein, there's a machine where you sit in what kind of looks like a medieval torture device and then grab onto the handles by your shoulders and do kind of crunches on this machine with varying degrees of weight. And of course, going by the same rhyming scheme, that must certainly be called the ABBA. But I don't tend to use the ABBA at the gym because I don't want to take a chance on me. MiG-21's at 287, 28.2 nautical miles, 15,000 feet. Let's climb up to that. They're a little bit further than Godata, though, so we'll just have to make sure that we consciously think that we're not going to get into the SAM range of Sochi Adler, which we shouldn't. Oh, shit. We have a Mirage F1EE 060 for 4.4. Part of that makes me worried about a runway strike. We'll see if that appears on the EWR again. 111 for 6.0. I think it is a runway strike. The F1EE gets equipped with quite a wide variety of anti-runway ammunition. It's probably one of the better airframes for offensive counter-air and anti-runway operations. Which is interesting. Yeah, you see? I would venture to guess that that is it.
Wide. We have a bandit. 12 o'clock. 3 miles.
I went for the depot.
Forward.
Okay, we're not going to dive down there because he'll get us inside of his circle and we won't get him. Oh, that's not good. I lost tally in the trees. Something about the trees in DCS makes it so much harder to hit anything that's silhouetted against them. I'm not going as fast as I'd like to be, but he is in a Mirage F1, so we're not riding the struggle bus too badly just yet. Don't really know why I thought that that AIM-7 had any chance of hitting, but we've got good speed now, so we can focus on the vertical. I suspect that this guy has actually lost tally on me. No, he's coming around.
4 o'clock. 4 o'clock
Too close
now.
for that AIM-7. But he was forward aspect, so
3 o'clock. 3 o'clock now.
I've lost tally yet again.
He's going to our 6, man.
There he is. I'm always looking to improve my my BFM abilities, so if anyone's got any feedback or any tips or tricks that I might like to try, please go ahead and let me know. And that air-to-air missile actually didn't manage to pull enough Gs. This guy is exhausting all of my missile stocks.
8 o'clock. 8 o'clock now.
And I'm going to do the one thing I shouldn't do, which is dump my speed.
1 o'clock. 1 o'clock.
Oh no! He wins the reversal. Ah! Oh no! My airframe. Oh no, we are
7 o'clock.
in serious trouble. I don't think we're gonna... Ah! Oh! Oh, I got shown the business. Well done to whoever that pilot was. That was Gringo in a Mirage F1EE. Got me with guns, but very quickly was taken down by Cool Terry in the F4 with an A9J, but a second too late to save me. You remember how I said dumping my speed was a bad idea? I should listen to my gut a little bit more. Alright, let's get ready for flight number 3. Welcome back everyone to flight number 3. And I was thinking we would shake things up just a little bit and do a little bit of logistics for our third flight of the day, seeing as we had such a successful first flight and then we got shot down, but let's not talk too much about that. We might as well do something in an helicopter, and I'm here in UH-1H, and we might build ourselves a Bofors gun. Okay. So, CTLD, I'm not a very good helicopter pilot, so we'll load that crate, and then we'll see if we can even take off. I think I've got a full load of fuel, so I might ask them to take some out, because we do not need to go far. I was thinking it might be a neat idea just to put it somewhere just at the end of the runway near this road here, just in case anyone's coming in for a runway bombing strike against Sakumi Babashura. Looks like the attacking on Gudata has eventually resulted in the Reds capturing that area, which means that Sukumi's going to be next, and as a result, we're going to need some defenses. Just waiting for our takeoff delay timer to end, and it has. Here's a good question for you guys. Of course, I know the answer to this, but if you guys want to test your knowledge... Oh, there's the fuel gauge. I was wondering where the fuel gauge was. Are we still getting defueled? Looks like we are, but it's going very slowly. Okay. Maybe we can take off at full fuel. This Apache is looking at me with the eyes of a judgmental parent. Please don't look at me too much. I'm not as good at helicoptering as you are. All right. You know what school teachers and the little helicopter blades on the back of a helicopter have in common? Typically quite concerned with anti-torque. It's a little joke about kids being annoying in the classroom. Oh man, it's been so long since I've been to school. I feel sorry for kids these days, though. They must just be dealing with some truly, truly difficult existential questions, you know. How would you motivate a young kid to take their learning seriously and not use AI generative tools and things like that if you, I don't know, what's the argument you make? I remember when I was a kid, I'd avoid doing my homework, and it wasn't even hard, you know? I just avoided doing it because I was a lazy piece of shit. Because you're not exactly as disciplined as you're ever going to be when you're a young'un. So, to that extent, I couldn't imagine sitting down with my younger self and being able to quite articulate a compelling argument to be like, hey man, I know that using AI to skive off and make all of your homework be almost instantly easy to do, I know that that exists, but it will mess you up forever. Please don't do it. Trust me on this. I can already think the counter-argument my teenage self would have, which would be, but everyone else is doing it. Or, I'll do it, but I'll do it differently to everyone else, and then they will... I won't be caught by the trap of AI like other people are. I'll just use it when I need to, and of course, none of us have the self-discipline to be able to truly moderate ourselves when we're that age. Well, maybe you did, you know. Some kids in their teenage years are laser focused, and some kids just don't quite find their groove until much later. I didn't do as well in school as I could have. I was pretty disillusioned with it. Which is a shame, because I think to myself regularly these days, if I could go back, I mean, sitting around and learning kind of cool stuff all day doesn't sound like the worst thing in the world. I certainly wouldn't mind just sitting in a history class, you know, my old history classes. I think back to what we were studying, and I'm in awe at how I wasn't enthralled by some of this stuff, you know. I spend half my time sitting around watching video essays on YouTube of, you know, ancient Roman history. Bro, they were telling you that stuff in high school. I can't unpack this yet, right? Because I need two, correct? CTLD commands, unpack. You are too close to a friendly fart unpack. Okay, we're going to have to go further. So let's pick you up. CTLD commands, load. Hey, we need to be further away. This is good because it gives me an opportunity to practice my takeoffs and landings, which are not my strong suit. But yeah, history. I still think I would be as ambivalent about mathematics as I always was. I was not a math head growing up. Well, in fact, it's not that I wasn't a math head. It's just that I didn't really like it. I was okay at math. And I'm using the, if any Americans are watching, they'll struggle with the pronunciation of math there, as opposed to mathematics, or maths. But yeah, I was okay at maths, but I found it relatively horrible to do. And they did try and pull me out of, math hell by forcing me to go to, and I think this is still around to this day, Kumon, which was a after-school educational service. And if you go on Google right now and you look up the company Kumon, K-U-M-O-N, and have a look at the little mascot character that they have as part of their logo, which is just of a miserable-looking kid. I'm like, man, they had to have had known, right? That you, ooh, VRS. They had to have known that, like, they were establishing their logo as, like, sad kid. Oh, man. I hated Kumon, though. Well, I have seen, when I was in Japan, actually, last year, I saw that there were still, quite a few Kumon centers in Japan, and I was like, oh my god, being a Japanese school kid must be tough. Certainly if my Japanese animes are anything to go off of. Okay, it requires 2 crates and there are 1, but we are far enough away. Don't worry guys, I'm not going to claim that going back to the airfield and picking up the second crate is part of the second flight, but we'll consider delivering, building, and then coming back our flight for this one. Of course, identifying characteristics of the Huey. It shakes like a leaf pretty much all the time. Sometimes the rotors come off. If you go too fast, the rotors come off. If you pull the stick too hard, the rotors come off. Yeah, if you get shot, the rotors come off. But I think... Ooh, I'm going to be testing my knowledge here. I'm trying to think if the Huey or the Mi-8 came out first. It's got to be the Huey, right? The Huey was one of the very earliest modules that came out for DCS. I don't think the HIP was too far behind, but the Huey was definitely one of the earliest ones. It does hold up relatively well, but I guess that's part of the symptoms of it being a relatively featureless helicopter. This front panel here just looks like a piece of sheet metal that people have punched holes in to put in all of the dials and gauges, which, you know, is probably true, but not exactly the world's most elegant design. Though the length of time between the development of the first helicopter and the development of the Huey is crazy, crazy short. At least it is in my mind. I think about it sometimes that the people designing fighter aircraft during the Second World War probably had memories of the invention of the aeroplane in the first place. They're contending with the technology that has came into existence within their own time. And there are probably people still alive today that are older than the helicopter. Though they must have really been onto a trick when they designed the Huey, because the same fundamental concept of the airframe seems to carry on in the form of the Venom and a wide variety of different helicopters, of course, now powered by more engines than just one and with more rotors than just 2. I believe the one that we have in DCS is very much Vietnam era spec, though I don't know actually. This the one thing that dissuades me of that is this digital radar altimeter, which, or at least it has digital numbering. I wonder if that's period accurate. In fact, if anyone in the comments knows the specific production year, the version of Huey that we have in DCS, which I believe is a I don't even know, actually. I should know this, but I don't. UH-1H, I think we've got. But I might just be making shit up. We streamed yesterday, of course. We played some IL-2 great battles and sprinkled in a little bit of a game that I think you guys would definitely be interested in checking out, called Hijong Park Defender. It is a indie game that has been developed to simulate an MD-500 helicopter, and they're working on adding a AH-1Z of some description. It's got a free demo that actually contains the full game for the MD-500 helicopter, so you've got nothing to lose. I'd highly recommend checking it out, and I'll actually put a link in the description for it. And of course, we did really well on IL-2 Great Battles as well. Much better than I expected, because it's been a while since I've done much flying in IL-2 GB, and I've just recently picked it up. But we were doing a little bit of flying at the start of the day in 1944, and we were flying PvP in some Allied aircraft, doing some close air support against some ground targets. First flight was in a Mosquito. Then we did a second flight in a P-39, and not only did we manage to do ground attack in the P-39, but we also managed to shoot down an aircraft as well. P-39 and P-38, of course. Oh, I get the P-39 and the P-38 mixed up all the time. The P-38 Lightning was what I was flying and got the kill in. But I was also flying the P-39 Aerocobra on Monday too, and having a good time, even if I can't hit anything with that great big whopping 37mm cannon on the front of it. Some other people can. I'm very jealous of them, but I can never get it to work. We were discussing the development of the P-39, that being the Aerocobra, and how it never really lived up to the expectations of the USAF, and part of that was as a result of the requirements of the USAF being incompatible with the design, but it did find a comfortable home with the Soviets. Then we switched over to a 1941 scenario, I think, or 1942, and did a little bit of flying around in a Hurricane, and what else was there? There was... I'm tapping my knuckles here. I'm trying to think if it was a Spitfire or if it was something else. Oh, it was a MiG-3, of course. I was asked to fly the MiG-3, and the MiG-3 is a very special airframe for me. Probably one of the first World War II aircraft that I flew, at least in IL-2 Great Battles, which was when getting back into IL-2 Great Battles many years ago at this point was kind of what got me back into flight simulation, after having had been into it, but not necessarily heavily into it. It was IL-2 Great Battles that got me back into it, because they had this wonderful scenario called Tactical Air War going on, and I wanted to join in on it. I just couldn't believe what a great idea it was. And I took off in my MiG-3 in a limited life scenario and was ready to do my duty, because I joined the VVS because everyone was playing on the German side and the VVS needed more players. Took off in my MiG-3, got myself off the ground, flew around looking for targets for about 40 minutes or so, and then saw someone, got into a turn fight with them, scored one of the best deflection shots of my entire life, setting the guy on fire and sending him into the dirt, only to have him tell me in chat later that he was in a Yak-1 and we were on the same team. In my defense, though, it was a really good shot. You can always tell who's new to World War II combat flight simulation, because it's very easy to struggle with visual identification when you're first getting started, and that inevitably leads to plenty of team kills. Which I've been told has also been the case in War Thunder sim battles as well. Okay, CTLD commands, and unpack. And ladies and gentlemen, inside those 4 generator crates were 2 Englishmen and a Bofors 40mm gun. And that will hopefully contribute to the wonderful air defences of Sukumi Babashura. In fact, can we chill here for just a second and see if they pop up and see anything? Oh, let's go! It would be hysterical if they turned around and shot me. I'm sorry I said those things, guys. I'm sorry. Alright? You both look very handsome. Your models are very up-to-date, and they fit within the DCS. Okay. Jeez, I better get out of here before I become their next victim. Good luck, guys. I know that you're trying to shoot down a MiG-21 with a 40mm cannon, but, you know, we'll do the best with what we've got. I'll give you a hint. The direction I'm flying's got a Su-25 on it. Oh, hopefully I can make it back to base and land here without getting shot down by any number of hostile aircraft that are in the way. I'm just glad I didn't crash. Looking forward to the weekend, looking forward to a new episode of Freerun on Friday. Freerun is an absolutely wonderful anime. If you even if you're not into anime, Freerun is just magnificent and well worth checking out if you're looking for a story that'll give you pause for thought in today's tumultuous modern world. This Su-25T is getting engaged by anti-aircraft guns, but it doesn't look like they're having much success. Maybe our Bofors gun will get him. Oh, there we go. Phantom number 1, Phantom number 2. I'm sure 2 Phantoms, with all of their combined might, will be able to take down the venerable Su-25. And there they go. Nicely done, boys. Nicely done. Good air cover. Now, also reinforced with the exceptional Bofors 40mm gun. Ooh, jeez. There's a Mirage F1EE here as well, and it's only 1.7 nautical miles away. I can feel the 30mm Defa guns just waiting for their chance to turn me into Huey paste. I hope that Apache had a good flight today. One of the very few modules I don't have for DCS is the Chinook, but I get the feeling that one day, not necessarily soon, but at some stage in the near future, that I am going to get the urge that I will not be able to fight off to fly the Chinook one day. My big question is that if you don't have a anti-torque rotor on the back of the helicopter, then what do the rudder pedals actually do? There's still so much to learn about aviation. Oh, don't vortex ring state on landing, Escher. Please don't vortex ring state on landing. Oh, hello. Maybe building a 40mm Bofors gun wasn't the worst idea if we're contending with P-51s. Maybe it will intercept some helicopters as they come along too. Haven't done any sling loading, but that's another task that I am very enthusiastic to try. I only got my rudder pedals, relatively speaking, a short while ago, so I'm still working on my ruddering abilities, as you can well see. In fact, if I were a more clever content creator, then I would have hidden my control inputs in the top left so no one can make fun of how badly I'm doing this. Alright. Touchdown. One day we'll be able to land in a specific area, but until that day comes, we'll just settle for close enough is good enough. I hope I haven't stressed this guy out by parking too close. The United Nations proudly representing the red team on today's episode of Contention Cold War. And at A10 coming up to do some work as well. Well, that's our 3 flights for Thursday. I hope that you guys all have a very good weekend, and I look forward to seeing you next week, where we can all hang out and spend some time together. There'll be a stream tomorrow, links down below. I'll see you all later. Bye-bye. Ah.